Yeah.
Are you on lodge tech, Jake?
We have to drive up to Minnesota for a volleyball tournament. Parents can't go. So we have to sit in a hotel room
Holy cow.
and watch the live stream of the volleyball, which is fine for Saturday. But what about Sunday when you get kicked out of the hotel? We can be sitting in our car for 5 or 6 hours. Right, right.
Yeah, you have kids.
I would need an Uber.
That's a very cheap from there.
So you guys, are we logging in so people can see us, or we don't have to mess around with zooming and?
I guess that's what they can see, Bob, right there.
There's a
says good picture on YouTube. Good read.
Good evening, it is 6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get tonight's regular session started. Stephanie, could you take roll?
April?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Rod?
Here.
Sean?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Hunter?
All right, we have quorum. Do we have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Agenda's been adopted. Do the pledge of allegiance now. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of fellow board members, I would like to invite any member of the audience to address the board with comments about items of interest or concern. Please begin by stating your name and address. We would appreciate it if you would limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes so that we can keep the meetings moving in a timely fashion. We ask that you remember Iowa law prohibits us from discussing specific employees or their job performance. Thank you for your support of our school district.
Two on from outside, so.
And no online comments or no one present to make comments, so we'll move on
I
to
can
the.
see right into the back of Jake Randall and Miss Smith's laptop computers on YouTube. No, just letting you know that,
Looking at your agenda.
if you knew where that's,
All right.
thanks Chuck.
We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Yes.
Mr. Large, any
Something on
specific,
Facebook.
specific items or any comments from the board, questions from the board?
From the board, paid bills, financial reports, are there any questions, feel free to ask. We've had a couple of recent submissions to our resignations and retirement. So the first resignation was Kelly Cagle. She's currently been our middle school language arts teacher at 8th grade. She's gonna be stepping away from teaching for a bit. And then Kayleen Jennings, food service dishwasher. Something else came up with the position after we just had hired her, so she transitioned to that job. You know, how long she was here, a couple days. And then Lynn Fonts. Lynn Fonts is our current preschool teacher. She's been here for just under 10 years, 7 years in the district. Lynn's gonna go ahead and retire this year. And she did let me know in her resignation letter, that retirement letter, she's been doing it for 41 years, so, but at West Marshall for 7. So we wish Lynn the best and hope to have a great year, including this nice fun year that she spent through with COVID and all sorts of things. So I know my daughter's enjoyed her thoroughly, so. Anyway, that's personnel report. At this point, we'll kind of discuss the preschool piece. It wasn't even, it really was a coincidence of kind of what we're gonna talk about for this month, but Ms. Kegels was not, so there you go. I recommend approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to the information.
So looking at this year, and we've done a lot with the last couple, 3 years with our 3 and 4 year old programs, specifically, you know, the variances. This most recent thing that we did is we combined 3s and 4s in the classroom sections. Right now, we knew going in, and I don't think any of you on the table knew where we're at with enrollment and kind of some of the numbers going down over the last 3 or 4 years. The quirk with resignation now gives us, I would say, as a board or as a district, an easier way out, because when we start looking at your dollars and cents at the end of the day, some of you have probably gone through this and you can kind of see where our overlap has been or our under shortfalls have been. And doing so with this year, as we start looking at 3s and 4s or combined classes, a lot of the things before you even do anything with 3s and 4s is decide 4-year-old's a free program. 4-year-old can serve a special ed kid who may be 3. 4-year-old can serve a couple 3 or 4 3-year-olds just to fill capacity and still be covered under the statewide voluntary preschool funding. But to run an entire 3-year-old preschool program like we've been doing for 7, 8 years, it's called an enterprise fund. What we bring in has to cover the cost. So in the few years where you do see 3,000 up or 2,000 up, they did do, and I know one of the paras did a lot of work with the fundraising piece and the efforts with 3-year-olds to try to self-sustain the program just to offer this to our families and districts. So this year, looking at registrations coming into, what we're looking at is trying to propose a balance to where nobody's going to lose their job, and that's the good position that we're in. But also looking at what it is and what the enrollment can look like for 4-year-olds for 21-22. We know that right now we're about a month ahead time of where we usually are when we start facilitating this conversation about how many people are gonna go out and recruit for 4-year-olds and letting families know, hey, if you got a 4-year-old or 3-year-old, we wanna know if they're gonna be coming next year. And rightfully so, I would say February, March is really when families are starting to look at the daycare, locking in the spot for that next cycle or next year, if you will. So I put together a little proposal summary of what we're hoping to follow for information. January 8th through March 1st is where we're gonna try to solicit all 4-year-old registrants. This is not selecting which section they'll be in from AM and PM. This is please commit to us that 80%, 90%, you want a spot for 4-year-olds next year. If we break down what we currently have is we have 2 teachers that are currently at the 4-year-old building, but they're both doing a combined classroom, all 3 of them are. We'd like to start with the 4-year-olds first, see what we get. From that standpoint, we would then open it up come March, so we would come after that board meeting and let you know, hey, this is where we're at for openings currently available. The good problem would be we're full with 4-year-olds, and then we have to come back and make the hard knock decision of, do we do anything with 3s any further at West Marshall for this coming year? If we do, then we have to figure out a game plan to self-sustain it, recruit a teacher, find someone that can be trained to offer this program, whether it be a Head Start level training or whether it be a full licensed teacher that we would bring in to run 3 and operate 3-year-olds. If not, and we see that we don't have many slots with full 4-year-olds and we have 4 or 5 left over, okay, great, we can open up to the first come, first serve or lottery in, for those 3-year-old families. Again, not fun decisions if we have to turn families away, but a decision that we would make in March once we see how many 4-year-old families come in. As I go down the list, we would still, if we did entertain 3-year-olds in a slot, and we're up to a certain amount of 3-year-olds, we have governance that tells us you have to charge or you have to have them pay tuition to fund that program. You have too many. This isn't just hey, you got 1 or 2 trickling in, you can cover underneath the voluntary preschool fund. I mean, you're gonna have to figure out if we have 10 and we have 10 slots available, they're still gonna have to be tuition paid as they were this year. Now, I'm not looking to do anything with increase of tuition simply because we're not having to cover for another 0.5 FTE salary due to attrition or due to retirement. So that's the easy conversation to have. The difficult again will be how many slots get filled by 4s and how many do we have left over. So right now, as we do the breakdown, if we do our 4 sections, we're currently running 5, we're gonna go 4 next year as it's proposed, based on enrollment and request. We have 68 slots. Of those 68 slots, at least gives us capacity up to wiggle room of about 4 or 5 kids. 2 reasons. Number 1 is, A, we don't know how many special ed kids who will be 3 that can be served with entitlement into that program. I know we've had 3 in the last 3 years. Believe it or not, that are 3-year-olds that are also special services that we have supported in that program. It gives our chance for our tentacles to get in front of them and get some needed support for these kids before they transition in. And then otherwise, you're not sitting here reserving 5, 10 seats for potential newcomers. I mean, once it's full, it's full. The note to make in the conversations that we've had numerous times just within staff, the minute you allow that 3-4 combination, 3s go to a 1-to-8 ratio for adult students and 4s stay at 10. So just something to think about when we start playing the lottery there, if you will, with 3s being admitted. We would like to do something a little bit different now that room would be available. Since that 5th section isn't hosting AM preschool for next year, we would have the ability to do a wraparound for both AM and PM sessions. So right now, currently, every student who's attending wraparound gets an AM slot because the 5th section is teaching in that room. Right now, I am proposing that anybody who was be it an AM or PM, families do not have to worry about having childcare, daycare, we can do it all inclusive. For the first time for both AM and PM sessions. Could be good, could be bad, as we just said, that might bite the hand that fed us, we might get more than we anticipated for, and then that again, a good problem we have to adjust down the road, but I think the biggest thing right now with true numbers, we know the numbers are pretty showing from the last 5-6 years. If you do offer that first full-time wraparound, we'll see. I think a lot of those conversations that you have as a board, or maybe have had some of those 8 o'clock night calls is, well, my son didn't get into the AM session in preschool, and they really wanna get that AM session. I should get in that AM session. Well, we did first come, first served, we did a lottery too on the wraparound. So I think now that you have that availability for both AM and PM, all families know as your child goes to West Marshall all day as a 3 or 4-year-old, and they may walk across the street with an adult to the other building, but they're still there all day, receiving A, daycare services, or B, preschool services. Here's where I just added in the proposal, we would insert the direct overlay of what we have for our current pay structure, programming and snacks for the wraparound portion. And then I did the past enrollment. And then the shortfall, as I've said, so if you work backwards, you can see. Then anything you wanna add, or before we go to questions, thoughts?
No, not really. I think just excited to be able to offer that wraparound, keep kids with us all day. I think that'll be nice to be able to do that.
So from an expense perspective, the expenses jumped up quite a bit from 1920 to 2021. Is there an explanation for that?
Yeah, so it's prorated between the 3 teacher salaries because all 3 for the first time had 3-year-olds in the wraparound, so we had 3s divided amongst all staff. So that's, yeah.
And I think fewer 4-year-olds, right? So I take the total expense and divide it out, so it's just a ratio.
Yeah, looks like a couple less 4-year-olds and 6 less 3-year-olds.
And again, just to, if you have a, I mean, the big thing is we can still just do 4-year-olds only if it fills up and say we're done. If we have 4-year-olds that fill up and we still have 20 more 3-year-olds in March that said, hey, we wanna come, then we have a decision to make. You know, what does that 3-year-old capacity look like? At a preschool, at a teacher, at a support preschool, Head Start certified sort of DHS approved daycare provider. How can you offer preschool services under what licensure, so to speak? And so really we're trying to get out between January and March to see where the numbers are coming in for 4s, and that'll be a true telling of what we know. I don't think there's a single staff member that says we shouldn't look at 3s simply because it's a great baseline to have a 3-year-old exposed to our alignment and curriculum for half a day. And I would say too, Rod, you're looking at 3-year-olds for the first time ever went 4 days to school this year. Where never in the last 5 years were they here for 4 days, they were only here for 2. So they went Monday, Wednesday, or Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Friday. So I think that was, I don't think Lynn was begrudging any of that. I think she's like, you know, I have
Yeah.
exposure to 3-year-olds for 4 days a week. How phenomenal has that been?
Yeah,
And
all 3 of the teachers have been really,
they did great. I mean, they really did. The naps and the sleep times and all this, and
yeah, I just see
it
that
becomes obsolete when you send a 3-year-old to school and then all of a sudden, 5 weeks into it, and they're like, oh, my kid has no problem going to bed at night because he didn't have nap time anymore. But we still do. I mean, we still offer the downtime for 3-year-olds and that wraparound care, but very, very few are taking advantage of their nap time, so. Other questions or thoughts? We're not required to have a 3-year-old program, and we're one of the few schools within 50 miles, probably more, that have a 3-year-old program. And at that decision come March, whether it may be a tough decision or not, if we are full capacity with 4, we have 4 or 5 seats left over, we'd have to make the decision on not continuing with the 3-year-old program. And that's when March will be, at least we'll have the information of 2 months soliciting registrants to have that decision made, so.
So we can do 68 between the four.
So if I remember correctly, there's been a few years where we've had to chase payments on the 3-year-old. Are we still running into that same issue, or has it been pretty?
Yes, you always run the same issue of the percent of how many.
Years old payment.
So it'll be the March meeting that we'll have more details and
You know, we're gonna present the, for signups at that point in time, and here's what we got. We know we're still a month ahead, and that's purposeful. Usually in April, we would come to you and say, this is what we know for sign up, but I feel like in March, we have to do our due diligence, at least for those 3-year-old families to know, I was hoping, my kid's turning 3, oh, by the way, I better get my kid into daycare now because, and so we'll push this information out, we'll let them know that 3-year-olds will not be until March, and the families at least need to know that it's only based on currently available slots. So with that information, if we come short of 4-year-olds, we're in a worse position, but because 3-year-olds of our families have already probably gotten spots for their daycares. But if not, I think we're giving ourselves at least a good chance to get all the slots filled, and maybe more so.
We'll push it out tomorrow, so I mean, I guess just spread the word, and we've got it going in a lot of different spots, but let people know that it's open, so they can get it filled out.
any additional comments or questions from the board on the preschool programming? Alright. Next up is new business, first item, the at-risk dropout prevention application.
So this is our annual at-risk dropout approval, let me get loaded here. Come on. That'll work. So right now, we look at serviceability of the at-risk prevention money to be approved by the board for the SBRC application. So in layman's terms, we need to decide how much money we're going to, levy or need for at-risk. When we talk about at-risk, we think about social emotional health or kids who are struggling. If you look at your full point FTE of a student, are they there every day, or are they specifically identified as these 8 kids, or you ask one given teacher, how many at-risk kids do you work with every day? Well, I work with 27 at-risk kids out of 110. What are truly our at-risk kids? And then you have to start looking at how much funding are we willing to levy to be able to have this backing for the at-risk fund. Right now, we're looking at the $143 for at-risk funding to support. We have our at-risk coordinator who serves at the high school half their day. Biggest thing, I don't think.
That's the maximum though, that we
Yeah.
could, we are requesting the maximum.
Right. So I think the big thing is when people say, what is it that you have the ability to do or ability to go after? Right now, we're looking at the $80,000 to be able to support that for supplemental owl growth.
So that's the amount that's levied, 80,000, then there's a required match of the 26. So the total funding would be the 106,667.
Any questions on the at-risk dropout prevention app? We have a motion.
We talked just a little bit, sorry.
Hold on that motion.
Yeah, please. And I'm not calling out Eric, I just wanna know. We went through on when we levy and when we do the taxes, we talked about what 50,000 does, what 100,000 does. I think I wanna be poignant that when we talk about levying or matching, you have ability at certain amount to go after for at-risk funding. And the reason I'm saying this is because COVID has been pretty poignant on mental health needs, or we've been more privy to that awareness. So a district is seeked and looked upon to do a lot of different things, and I wanna say that yes, there is the attainment up to 143, but you're also levying taxes to be able to get to that amount. And I think the hard part is when people say, oh, you get all this at-risk money for free, you use it for at-risk stuff. Right, so we're gonna go out and tell, as a board and as myself, tell every member in this community, we're raising your taxes because there's a need. Now, based on that, here's what we have done. So we feel like as stewards, this is very comparable to what we have done to serve, and it leaves us the latitude to be able to do it and support the staff that we currently have. So I think as we work with staff, it's a matter of, you know, are the right people doing the right work in the right seats, and is this money gonna be able to supplant what we need for kids who are currently in that boat? So, that's all I was gonna say, just so that they were, sorry, alright.
So just to enlighten us a little bit, do you have like a rough number of students that are considered at risk that we serve?
The biggest at-risk is when you have a 9-12 setting, they have 7 identifiers or 8 identifiers, and you start looking at what really qualifies for at-risk. These are dropout prevention kids, these are kids who've had not your, you know, broken home situation. We're talking about academic at-risk kids. So when you start looking at that, that's how you fund your money or funnel your money through those supports. Life unexpectancies or passings of individuals and households, those don't attribute to an academic, they are part of a qualifier for social emotional piece, which then districts would have to look at using general fund for, you know, certain things that maybe are additional supports, but you just don't use at-risk funding for like a third-party consultant to come in and say, we're gonna give you psychological, social, emotional health, and it's gonna fix your academic problems. It's no, how do we get academic support for kids in that realm? So I think we've started to tread on a little bit of gray water, and I know we've had to kind of reel back in a few where I have a kid who never comes to school. Great, his cognitive level and his IQ is smarter than the teacher as a junior. They just don't wanna be at school. And so when you start breaking that down, well, that kid's at risk. Well, what at risk is he, you know? And so lazy or truly at risk? And so that's when we have to key in on, okay, what's gonna put us on the watch list? What's gonna put us on the dropout prevention piece? So
But as far as like a true number you can put your finger on, is that something that's tracked and released, or is that just through guidance? You know, who to identify and how to do those.
from a 9-12 perspective, we identify the kids, they give you the targets, and they say, how many kids do you have that fall within this realm? If you look at a test IOU survey, there's attributes in there where kids will self-respond to it, and you know, oh, they feel like they're at risk in this, so there's 2 different lenses of what an at-risk kid is. There's an academic component, there's a social emotional being component. If you're looking at social emotional, yeah, you're gonna have a lot more numbers than you would the academic at-risk piece.
Additional questions on the at-risk dropout? We have a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The at-risk dropout prevention MSA application's been approved. Second item up is the board member appointment to the Marshall County Conference Board.
Floor's yours.
I will not be serving on this board this next year, now that I work in, well, when we're in the office, I work in West Point now, so I'm not right there in Marshalltown. As far as commitment to this, it meets maybe 2 or 3 times, and typically they're over a lunchtime, and they're 15-20 minutes at a pop.
Already on that.
You're the backup last year and the year before, but
That was, I was back at.
yeah.
How much did you back up?
Finally get your turn right here.
Is there a motion?
It's
Raise your hand.
it's relatively easy, they get you on an email list and you get the email a week or 2 ahead of time as far as when they're meeting. But it's just a board of, there's some supervisors on there, county supervisors, and then the local school board representation. about half the people make it.
What's the purpose of the board? What comes out of it?
You're basically approving the budget for the county supervisors, so salaries and expenditures, so.
Doesn't the school members kind of are a percentage of a point or a percentage of a vote or something, and we don't all have the same, we don't all bear the same weight when they.
I'm not aware of any weighting.
I think there's something, I think the schools will get, anyway, I can do it, I'm in town, I did it past year, so I can do it.
And typically get free lunch out of
Don't
Pizza or
maintain-
subsidy.
You have to maintain the shadow for taking lunch, so.
it. Gotta eat on the run, cause they're pretty short meetings. Well, do we have a motion to approve Bob as the board member?
I move to approve Bob to
Second.
serve on the.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Bob Ranson is the new board member, we need from the county conference board. Congratulations. Alright, item 3 is the school budget review committee application, Grandwood Consortium.
So currently, we still have one more student, or we have one student participating in Grandwood. Special education program over in Granger, Iowa, we transport daily to, as of this week. We'll have 0 students that attend Grandwood, but annually, we have the opportunity to go to SBRC, School Budget Review Committee, and ask for the blessing and the waiver of the funding that we spend on administrative costs. So currently, right now, based on the FTE, the amount of students who attend, we're able to ask for the $2,800 back for the administrative costs for the principal over there. So I'm asking to do that this year, and he will have that as the authority, so.
And what it does is, instead of charging, because usually administrators who work with special ed are charged to general fund expenses, this allows us to charge it to special ed expense instead of general ed. So,
And you said as of this week, we won't have anyone.
Yeah, the resident students moving out of the district.
Any questions on the Grandwood Consortium?
We would still remain part of the consortium as a voting school or have the option for the seat if something comes available, but at this point, nothing that's that severe or profound that can't be handled there.
Do we have a motion on item 3?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. SBRC application for Grandwood Consortium has been approved. Moving along to the facility equipment needs.
Last fall, we went through this and annually we've gone through and just try to update this. This was, I guess put in place 5 years ago, but the idea was it was kind of a weekly, monthly, I don't know, sometimes hourly, somebody comes and has a great want or a great need, where there's always a different, hey, this broke, this is what happened. Here recently, the reason I'm showing this is just to kind of give you, the updated where we're at, but also 3 things. Number 1 is, we've always had the in progress for the computer replacement cycle. That's always kind of been in a budgeted amount that we look at. This year with the GEARS funding, we were able to complete all kindergarten through 3, or K through 2. So everybody in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade now has brand new Chromebooks, and able to use that with GEARS funding. So the allocation or what funding stream was applied wasn't general PEPAL or SAVE, it was just GEARS money. More recently here, we've had some conversations of looking at when the next school bus would be. We did talk about facilities after July 1. We felt like we could hold. We have one that we just had bought. That year we bought 2 in, 2 years ago. It'll be up for warranty now after July 1st. So we felt like we could use that $100,000-ish already and move to next year. We have state bids that I look at, or I'll have her contact at Kubota, one over at Hubbard, one at Toledo. And I have John Dewey, so for outdoor equipment, maintenance facility equipment, mowers, and I have another one, Stu Hansen and John Dewey, who usually are who we buy our vehicles from, just because they meet the state bid. Central Iowa Farm Store, probably about 3 weeks ago, came in with a Kubota unit, that matches our Jacobson unit. The kicker that I even paid attention to is usually what happens is they come in with a unit, it's got a mower on it, and then you've gotta spend an outlandish amount of money for your attachments. This was not the case, it's a newer unit than what we currently have. So when visiting with Corey, I know Bob did take a look at the unit, I went over and took a look at the unit. In order to kind of watch our P's and Q's, I said, we know we have 2 vans and one was scheduled to be purchased prior to July 1st. Right now, I'm asking if you would be able to approve the authority to go out and buy this unit, but then also look at our van to be purchased after July 1 for next year. 2 reasons. Number one is, we had some kind of unexpectancies due to the derecho that came up. So not only is the mower, but I'm looking for tonight for the approval of the bleachers. So that was an additional $14,000 to $17,000 that we'll end up having, which I think is a good position to be in. Nobody expected the storm to come, but now that we're gonna have 2 replacement units plus 2 refurbished units, we have enough money to spend on 1 big unit where we'll never have to move bleachers again other than repair what's on site, and location would be good. On here, you're gonna see the red would be and the pending. The 2 other things that we would move with would be the bleacher configuration, the Jacobson mower, snow blower, broom. Also look at the utility tractor just hangs there. We know it's an old Ford, it needs some work. We use that primarily for moving the bleachers, moving some dirt for FFA, and scraping our back road with our box scraper and things in that nature. So what units we have now, we don't have a replacement for that, but that's the limited that utility tractor would have. So we'll still keep it on the list, but nothing's gonna be in action at this point. Flatbed trailer, we'll keep covering that. We have some good donators who, if we need a trailer, we can use that. The district enclosed van trailer, we got to the point where we had purchased a trailer, so to speak, but then before we signed and sealed the deal with approval of the payment, derecho hit, rolled that trailer, and then the guy took it back and covered it under his insurance. So we're still without, a new van trailer. So the van trailer currently is goes right back on the list as, a needed item. And no time, date, specification right now at this time when we would do it, but we're always out hunting and looking. The other things that we have, which has specifically no action, no conversation that we've done up to this point, recrowning the football field is always a, bone of contention. If we aren't ever gonna do turf, we need to recrown it. Career Academy CT edition, those are the big ones. That's definitely not that. Sorry.
Say, let's do that one.
Yeah, let's do this one. Forgot the 0. Another thing that we've had no action with, but yet PTO has done some preliminary work on costs, and that's where we know that these numbers for the elementary playground update would be $130,000. And we originally talked about some grants to be able to start working with that. That exact same system that was put back in 93-ish was $56,000, and I just asked for a rebid requote from one manufacturer, from Miracle, and then I went from US Playgrounds, another manufacturer, and they were $164 for the exact same replica, and Miracle came back in at $130 for the exact same replica, if we went with that exact same unit today's 2021. So we knew that was some, okay, we're gonna have to put that on the list to start looking at some additional funding or be a carpet tunnel, keep writing grants. Weight room additional racks and sets and plates, again, these are nothing that has had any action on at this point in time. We have not put it into, we're willing to start talking budget or funding account to it. So as we go on our list too, library updates, auditorium sound, rigging updates. We had the grant that got denied due to COVID layoffs at Prairie Meadows. Third floor classroom renovation, I think that's just a novelty piece. I put that on there just to remind people we still occupy the 3rd floor, heat and cool it, but yet it's the ghost town. And right now, with any of our talks we've had last couple of years, there's no need to do anything there, but it's just, we've had it there. Baseball, softball backstops, all fencing, we're right around $22,000 to do black vinyl on the perimeter. And then you'll see here with the recent conversation with baseball and softball, the most that we've done with any of the dugout update rebuilds was just looking at the $3,500 with Melee to give us one plan that can do the same exact structure on both the boys' home dugout and the girls' home dugout. So that was a deal that you guys gave me the approval to have them design it, and I turned around and one-upped them and said, this has to work for both facilities, cause I'm not gonna pay for 2 licensing fees for the exact same thing. And they said, absolutely, we think we can do it. There's a couple utility lines over at the baseball that they might have to work through with permitting, but at least we'll have biddable and materials list for doing it if we wanna move in that direction, but right now it's just estimated at 40,000 for each one, and that's rough, but we'll come back to the table and say, once we have the drawings, does this move up any higher on the list, or do we just leave it where it's at? So anyway,
The question on
Yeah.
the fencing.
Yep.
When you say all fencing, do you mean like the entire
yeah,
outline?
so you're going from foul pole to foul pole via the backstop. So none of the outfield fencing, you're going from foul pole fencing to foul pole fencing, including the backstop. And that would be all updated. All the perimeter outfield fence would not be replaced, and that was the quote I got from,
Both locations, it's only 22 grand.
that's per one, so I should put times 2 in there. So baseball is where we originally went, 17 was the softball.
And why wouldn't you do the whole thing? Was the fence out there newer?
No, it just, where's your cutting costs, where we're saving money, it's just per linear feet once you get out there, and then it pushed it up to 29.75, I think, for baseball. I think the hard part with the baseball is every year we put push-in rods for the fence, cause we gotta stop play, you've probably been at games where we've had to stop play, cause the fence is not kosher per an official's decision, umpire's decision. So every year we, reseam it, groove it. Backstops, I would say, are the worst of worst. We've also talked about just doing the backstops at both and then leaving the perimeters. The softball is what's thrown us for the loop, because if we're gonna do the backstop at the softball, we have to do the foul sides because it's a 36-inch fence. We've had one umpire in 5 years that tell us, I'm not gonna play the game until you either move it or find another field to play on. Okay, we're not gonna be paid your $90 or whatever, but yes, back in the day when they built it, they built 36-inch high fence. Every fence built today under building code for Iowa High School athletics has to be at least 42, or higher. And it's for a safety feature for the athletes, so when they don't undercut themselves, or when they go chase the ball, they would flip and cause damage. Or in higher fence, you just smash against the fence and I guess a little less cooler, but anyway. Yeah, and we sat on 2 quotes 2 different times on the auditorium seating. I think what we'd like to do and what we kind of walked away with, knowing that the grant was not accepted with, no action on that. It's $52,000 to replace the current seats that we have right now, just in the middle section of that auditorium. And that is giving you, your handicap availability aisles, your seating width is gonna increase by 6 inches, so you're gonna lose some seats. So for 52 grand, we tell our community we got great seats, we have air conditioning in it. Oh, by the way, our occupancy has dropped over 27 seats. So we're gonna see how we come out with this project for the summer, and we just kind of left the auditorium, new electrical upgrades, AC in there, but all the rigging, seating, will not be touched. We are gonna do the carpet runners, this summer, simply because we've had a few notices on EMC that we do have some seams and tears, and we do have some what we call trip lips on some torn carpet, but other than that, it's hands off the auditorium. We know it won't burn down and it'll be climate controlled, so that's 2 big ones there with the new electrical panel, but yes, the auditorium needs some definite work on that. I think the Bob's always made is give us the true number when we go into it, and then we'll decide where we're at as we move forward. The true numbers are everything up in the top. I can throw in the summer of the softball, baseball, softball fence total. And here, there's really no quoting other than just rough estimates down here because we've done really no action on them. So. That's information before we go on the next one.
Alright, any questions on the schedule, equipment schedule needs?
Jason, before you get started, Tara Fonts, can you let her in when you get a minute? She's gonna talk later too.
Alright, next item up is the bleacher replacement reconfiguration.
So if you had a chance to look at this or thought more about it, we'd like to propose moving forward with the additional, the option 2, the 10 row 42 foot. On my little call outs here, just for the reference, the blue are those that are gonna be replaced with the ratio, the 2 that were damaged. The yellows are the ones that we're going to refurbish. That's what happens is when you permanently affix a new structure, we're getting by because we don't permanently affix it, but now that we permanently affix something on site, our insurance company and also us, we do wanna have the hand railing up to date, and we have to have the step path widened. So they'll come in here on site, cut them down, put new end caps on, run new railing, they won't be split railing anymore, and they'll put the fall guard on the outside. So basically you do chain link woven, or you can do your linear battings or whatever, to make sure that it's compliant for ADA. And then the green one, if we do all 3 of those refurbished, we would then take that one over to the baseball field. And you can see right now, I mean, we've had a few good baseball teams last few years and we have no place for anyone to sit. And it was kind of cool with COVID because everybody sat around the outfield, but we would like to move that other bleacher over here. And you know, the kind of joke was we want 2 nice ones over here, and I said, well, we're gonna put a third little dinky one, so we would probably move one of these over to here, or just abandon and scrap the worst of the 3 of these little guys. And then here you can see back in the red, this red one would slide over here to be the permanent fixed structure. One local guy at Concrete gave me anywhere from a pad, so that's the big kicker here. We know these are gonna be on footings. Baseball's gonna be on footings. Currently right now at the softball field, and you think about how many games we play there as opposed to 4 home football games, we do wanna finish the pad here. So you might be looking anywhere, 8 to 12,000, depends on how much that is in a 4-inch pour with just rebar. But then they would come in and also do, this is a $4,200 footing system. And then over here at the baseball field is around $3,100 that you would pay for footings on fixing those. So the 2 big ones, cause this one here is not on footing, it's sitting on gravel and dirt. It didn't move but maybe 4 or 5 inches. And then everything else that we have right now on the whole side over here is all fixed and set in stone, so. So for anybody, and I guess for Eric too, I mean, those bleachers, those 2 yellow ones, we move those twice a year back and forth. We split them, pull them apart, put wheels underneath of them, pull them with the tractor, reset them, connect them.
Call the welder in to repair them every time we move them, so I think option 2 is a great idea.
So what would you be looking at for the all-in cost then with 2?
I have 2 more concrete coats coming in on the pad.
But this 14,
Yeah, 1485,
845 doesn't
15 would be-
include the concrete.
It does,
It does.
on the footings
Okay.
only, not the pad though.
Okay.
Yep.
And you said 4 to 5 grand probably on the high end for a pad?
Pad's gonna be anywhere from 8 to 12.
Oh, 8 to 12.
Yeah.
So do we wanna amend this to approve the pad now?
No, I would wait to see where quotes come in, I mean, it's, concrete guys are hungry right now, so.
I move to approve accepting option 2 for the bleachers.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Option 2 has been approved for the exterior bleacher replacement reconfiguration. The snow removal equipment is next up on the list.
So on the review comments here, if you if you happen to take a look at it, I've told Corey, I've told Doug, told anybody that's asked, I've been at districts where we've had the broom sweep And 90% of the time, depends on the winter weather you get in Iowa, if you run the broom, it's either gonna make it slicker or it's gonna work great. For the parking lots is where you use the broom from drains, outlets, things like that, it's phenomenal on. But there's just amazing things that you can do with a blower and a deck and so on and so forth. But yeah, just to kind of show you what our current thing was, our current Jacobson mower here, that's 68-inch mower. In the winter, we run just this little plexiglass acrylic glass cab. Got a hole in the back here, so everybody's got a little fresh air, but you know, non-heating. Corey put some lights on it, and I know it's originally designed and built by another bus driver that used to drive for us, so we do have a taker that will replace the one that's currently driving in it, but we have the option now at another one with the 2 attachments. I did get him to throw, you saw the trade-in value on the $4,500, which I think if we sold this outright, I don't know that we've come close to that, but they're willing to work with it, and we also got the mower on it, the mower deck, so he's gonna put that in there. And we do have the heated cab on the new one if we were to move it, and it's not, I mean, it's reasonable. If you look at the John Deere units, the exact same. We did quote 2 of those. One was 42 and one was 47. So, I mean, Kubota, Toro, Jacobson are all good units. I reached out to Toro and Ankeny because they usually do demos for schools. I'd had that another experience in another district, and they only were doing 3 this year for 3 districts, and or last year, and this year they're doing none because of the COVID thing. So they just at this point they laid off too many. They're not going to demo any units because it was a demo to buy at a reduced price. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments on it. Usage mower, that gives us, we have the one zero turn that we have had, that's a 65, we just bought the new 0 turns, those are our 2 mowers. We'll run this new one as a mower as well. The nice thing about the blower, you can see out front, we usually do all sidewalks in the districts with the Jacobson and the blower. We only contract out the flat work or the concrete work here for parking lot work. Everything else we do in-house. We get behind the 8 ball, you can see the piled up sod from running the truck down at 4 in the morning because there's gonna be a basketball practice at 7 a.m. and we don't wanna not have them have access for people on site. So they're handy units, they really are. Kenny's done a nice job running it, and he's been doing it for ever since I've been here. I've been willing to keep him in it, but I know he's not really in favor to keep doing it, but no, I'm not saying we buy the unit, he's gonna continue to do it anyway, it's just, we know what we currently have, so. 3 years ago, we took over all snow removal at Storage, Main Street, all of elementary and all the bus barn. When we lost that, we had somebody who resigned from the contract, we said we can do it, we got the blade for the truck, and we've been going at it, so for the last 3 years, we've serviced the Jacobs, Ori's put new points on it. I JB welded the gas tank because the whole neck broke, and it's $800 just for a new tank, and I'm like, it's not worth dinking around with that, so let's just milk it until we get something new. But it was kind of bite the hand that fed you, because Corey's our maintenance tech, that maintenance guy down at the bus barn, and so he's he knows what we're at for miles on a couple of our vans, and I know we can make it, especially now that we don't have the student transporting back and forth pretty much second semester now, so not too worried about the miles until after July. But just some figuring there, because I want to stay true to money out of the couple account.
Questions on the snow removal equipment? We have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The snow removal equipment. It was a Kubota unit, is that right?
Yeah.
Has been approved. Item 6 is policy discussion.
Any questions? Yeah, for the first two policies, we just resend them, met with Union, Labor Management Committee, which is the WMEA Teachers Union, they understood what was rescinded as of December 31st. No arguments or quorums in that respect. The reason that the emergency paid sick leave, the COVID leave, we're not adhering to those, A, they didn't reauthorize it or re-up it. There was some small dialogue about what districts may or may not continue to use certain funding to help support this. And of all of our folks who have not, not been able to come to work, either quarantining or because they themselves have COVID, 3 days with one individual was the only amount of days that they could not physically work while at home, while at quarantining, or while sick. So moving forward, Union knew that I can work from home, I can remote in, I can teach class from home, I'm not having to take sick leave or leave because of quarantine. And if I really am truly sick due to COVID, I don't have the option of 3 days, and that was acceptable. Or you already have to use your sick leave. So I think what happened was like many of you in your own jobs, well, they got COVID before December 31st and they got those days. And geez, now I get COVID after December 31st and I don't get those days. Well, when all comes down to it, what we've done from the middle school, from high school and elementary, to be able to Zoom in, Skype, they don't have to take leave at all. They're still teaching, maybe from the living room couch, but our job is to get an adult in that classroom while the licensed teacher, certified teachers at home running the class. So no issues there. So those are resend, student conduct, you just see the notes there, corporal punishment, restraints, physical pieces, then you see the notes that Jody and I put in there with their policy revised in accordance to new changes. A lot of the things that we've seen with the policy has been de-escalation, so today we just even had a conversation with that. We released the policy and then they finally sent us the training as of yesterday. So what it requires is all employees to go through a physical restraint, that if a child is in need of restraint, methods to do so, limitations that, hey, if you can de-escalate, and that was the new component they had added, that in your job, in your line of work, you may have to restrain a student or individual in the classroom. So here are the options, we'll go through that, and then physical restraint, those are all the new policies that we'd like to add in, so. I don't know if anybody's read through any questions, usually I get a couple, I didn't get any on it, so.
Any questions on the policies for the first read? We have a motion for the first read.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Board policy first reading has been approved as presented. Second readings.
There was no changes in addendums to this.
Any questions on the
The note
second?
was made the note was made on the 410, so if you wanna pull out the 410.1, this is gonna be the waive the second read and approve the final on the 410.1.
So should we do that one first?
Yeah.
Alright, so do we have a motion to waive the second reading and move to final for the board policy 410.1?
Motion to waive the second reading of 410.
Second.
Did you want me to say to move to final? Sorry. To move to final, sorry about
Still second.
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
that.
All opposed, nay. Alright, board policy 410.1, waive second reading and move to final. We'll do that one later, right? Is that actually?
We approve the rest of the second reads.
Alright, so for the remaining second readings, any questions on those or a motion?
Move to approve.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Board policy second readings have been presented, or approved as presented. And the final readings.
No changes.
Any questions on the final readings?
Move to approve final readings as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Board policy final readings have been approved as presented. And last item on new business is the fundraisers.
We had approval to, a request for approval for after prom to sell popcorn. So two individuals working on the after prom committee, Teresa Seer and Heather Stanley, and Jake and I did not have any opposition to this, the time frame that they're doing it, so get down. The same ones who did the request for the masks, so they are gonna put another order out for those here shortly as well, just because they've got a lot, we've all got a lot of feedback on, hey, can we get another mask order in? And yep, we can sure do that too, so. We did leave that one open, so we don't have to come back for approval on it, but we'll do another order under the same approval. So there's a new one, Jake, I don't know if there's anything on that or not, okay?
No, sir.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. A fundraising request has been approved. The building level reports. First up,
And speakers, sorry, I just kind of thought of it.
Yeah, so on mine, I've got just I put the Trojan tots and the wraparound care and child care in there, JC covered that. There, just that the registration's gonna open up tomorrow, we've got the link ready to send out. We'll put that out, on the website and through GovDelivery. Secretaries will have it, so if somebody can't access the link, they can call the school and they can fill it in for them, so. Next one is staff professional development or professional learning update there. When we came back in January or after break, we just did a refresher on our mission, vision, and collective commitments that we came up with as a building. Kind of talked through those and making sure that those are at the forefront of decisions that we're making for kids. And then we did continue our literacy deep implementation study that we had started. I know I'd shared some data last year. Maybe even the year prior, maybe. Anyway, it's just when we did walkthroughs with our literacy consultant from the AEA. Last year we were able to get in, the previous years almost every month. This year we didn't want to lose focus on that. We wanted to make sure that teachers were still working on that instruction and that implementation. So we got into every classroom one time first semester. So this is just a snapshot of teacher instruction, and usually that takes place, that's myself and our literacy consultant from the AEA, which is a change from this year. Our previous consultant moved to took a principal's job over at Humboldt, so we've got a different one this year. So she came in, it's usually her, myself, and then we've been pulling one of our teacher leaders to kind of join us, and we go in the classrooms, and there's a rubric with all the components of the framework. I go in there and then we just have a discussion and give feedback to the teachers. So you can kind of see the comparison of the scores there. Those are each, a component of the lessons there, or the framework. They did make some changes to the IC map, which is what we score on the components, and so you can kind of, she made notes in there like where those pieces went. They kind of did some reconfiguring there. So we looked at this as an ILT team just the other day. And we're pretty pleased with what we saw, the growth we've made even from the start until now. A couple of things that we decided we're gonna work on is working on some more professional development or professional learning for staff, but doing it more differentiated. When we get there's a kick-up data is what it is, and so we can pull a report on each teacher and we can give them their scores and have them look at it, and then we're gonna provide little kind of breakout sessions of different PD, like if you need to work on the modeling and the focused instruction piece, then you're gonna go to this room and you're gonna get a refresher from your colleagues, just to kind of get that beefed up there a little bit so that we don't have to sit through everything. If you've met a standard or met one of those and you're doing fine, you don't have to sit through that PD again, so.
So on that, it looks like good progress over the last few years. The two that obviously pop out, just looking at the numbers, would be the modeling focusing instruction, and then also the repeats instructional purpose. Is there a, I don't know what the right word is. What do you feel is contributing to that dip in those two areas?
Well, if we're COVID, no, just kidding. Yeah, I don't know, I mean, just not having taught for so many months, I'm not sure. That is one that when we met yesterday, that's one that came up, that modeling, that focused instruction has a really high effect size. Looks like I didn't get that in there, so that is something that we did talk about as a leadership team, that we need to make sure that we are making sure that everybody's getting that clear modeling in, because that has such a huge impact on the learning, so that's one. What was the other one?
The repeats instructional purpose, the what, how, why?
Yeah, that's just making sure that you're concluding your lesson and making sure you're stating, because you're gonna state that at the start of the lesson, what do you want the kids to do? How are they gonna do it and why are they doing it? And just making sure that they're wrapping that lesson up with those same components again, those same purposes. So again, that's where I think we'll break out. We probably will pull the data and we'll see the teachers that scored really strong in that area and have them provide some coaching to their colleagues around that area to try to get that back up. Moving forward, we'd like to, our goal is, with subs and getting classroom coverage, but we'd like to get into every classroom again, at least once third quarter and once fourth quarter. I think every month is a little bit lofty. We might be able to, but that's our goal, is staying for once again each quarter.
So what are these percentages based off of? Is there like a scale or something?
Yeah, it's like an innovation configuration map, so it takes each section, I don't even know if I have one that I can pull up. So it takes each component of the instruction and it gives descriptors. If you are an A, or 1, 2, 3, 4, it's kind of like a proficiency scale. You get marked that, and the descriptor is like exactly what we need to see when we go in there to get that score. Does that make sense? And then it kind of goes down like.
And so how many people are observing? I'm sorry, you might have said that.
No, that's okay. It's usually myself or Kim, and then our literacy consultant, and then we pull one of our teacher leaders.
So like 3 or 4 of you.
Yeah, like 3, and then we iterate, we do one and then we come together and make sure that we're all kind of seeing the same thing and we give that final score. So that's something we did get started last year. We finally got to pull some teacher leaders out of the classroom and get their classes covered and let them go in and watch each other. I mean, I think that's pretty powerful for them, and they.
And how quickly, do the teachers get the feedback, out of curiosity?
Usually within a day.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's good.
And do you all go into the classroom at the same time?
Mm-hmm. And then some other work that we're doing is some culture and workplace civility work that we started this year. That's something we're gonna continue. We've got a training for a learning opportunity for everybody coming up next week. We sent out a survey, kind of let people rate what they felt like the culture was or the civility level was within the building. They got to rate that and then give a specific example of one uncivil behavior that you're seeing out of your colleagues. And then one behavior that you would like to see more of that would make a big impact on our culture or the civility of the workplace. So we've got those results. Our next steps are gonna be on Tuesday, Kim and I are gonna provide just a brief training on how to have a fierce conversation. So if you've got an issue with a staff member or something that you would like to talk to them about, instead of maybe going to another group of people and talking about it in the hallway or engaging in, negative conversation about one another, just go to approach that person. And kind of have that conversation like, oh, this is bothering me, or this is, hey, I noticed this, what can we do? I mean, we're all on the same team, so that's kind of the thing, that trying to hold each other more accountable instead of run to Nanette's office. And I mean, not that I don't mind if everybody comes, but I mean, and just complain about problems. We gotta kind of get to the root of what's going on so that we can move forward for our kids. So those are the behaviors that we want to see out of our kids. So we gotta have those problem-solving skills and interpersonal skills as adults too, because kids are watching. So we're gonna start that on Tuesday, give that training, just give staff the tools to be able to do that, I guess.
So this is new, this is not something that you've been doing for a while?
No, it's been in the back of my mind. We were gonna start it last spring, but we closed down, so we started this fall.
Okay,
So-
and so the outcome of this, I mean, is it to identify a trend in something? I mean, is there a goal to doing it other than getting people to be more civil to each other?
I think that the goal is gonna be that I think our test scores and stuff are gonna go up, hopefully, if people are, we know that collaboration is a huge piece of student success, but we have to be able to have pretty honest conversations and good relationships with one another, civil relationships, if we're gonna work towards the betterment of our students, so.
Do you feel there's a problem?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there a problem?
I mean, I think they're just like anywhere, there's always, some culture things that, creep up, and I know that, when I took this position, there was some concerns about the culture in that building, so, just something that I think we needed to address.
There's various companies and businesses who've done like DISC surveys or what your learning appropriate surveys are. Well, yeah, I mean, you've probably gone through those. I think the big thing is if you look at that collegiality, we just wanna be able to know that if you're gonna be a listening ear, how is that going to improve your instruction? From a content alignment, our grade level aligned teams are working together, our leaders are working together across teams. So I think the biggest thing is I don't have every social studies teacher sit together and plan together. But if there's the civility of not being able to work or correct somebody and say, hey, this is what I think we need to do, okay. That's even worse than somebody who disagrees with you because there's just that complacency. So I think being able to know how you're gonna work and collaborate, or being able to be in the hallway and say, no, we have one thing. You don't have to like me, but we have one goal. That's working with those kids and getting those kids to where we need to be. And I think that's been whether it's applicable to elementary, it's applicable to middle or high. That's how it is, so.
Yeah, there's definitely had been some divides, or whatever, just like JC said, you sit at a meeting and you say, okay, but then you run to the room next door with your best friend and starts, complaining.
I get every once in a while, we'll get a call, I don't like what so-and-so sent an email. Great. Do you know your room is right beside her room? So you run to someone else to tell me what you could tell your counterpart. And then you sat and had coffee with her for 20 minutes here at the high school. So it's everywhere. It's just that, and I think the hard part is, it's just that what encourages you to do the job for the kids, and we want to work together in that. And I think everybody agrees that their heart's in it for kids, period.
Oh, yeah.
They want
I think
it.
it's great, I just didn't know if there was
Yeah, no,
an issue or.
Yeah, yes, I think that we need to get some things resolved and cleared before I think, we can put all these, we've invested a lot of time and a lot of money into outstanding curricular materials, for sure, but we have to have, the people have to be in the, right people need to be there, and we need to be in the right frame of mind and have the right collaborative relationship in order for that to, otherwise it's not gonna make any difference how much money we throw or what curriculum we put in people's hands. Has to be the right people doing the right work in the right way, so.
So that's a question too, Annette, this training's gonna teach you how to approach each other and how to have these conversations. Is it also gonna follow up with what happens if these things don't work? Are we just gonna keep chasing our tail and taking more training to try and figure out, is there an end result that if these don't work, what happens?
Well, I'm hoping like all the backstabbing and the you know, the little sidebar conversations in the hallway and the negativity about anything that we're doing, like the initiatives that we're doing. Yeah, I'm hoping that will just kind of open up and make people, you know, have better relationships and be able to collaborate and agree to disagree if we need to, or, you know, share their opinions or that kind of thing.
I don't think you're ever done. I mean, I think this is something we have to continue to instill on the culture
Right,
and the
yeah.
environment. I mean, I get stuff like this through work all the time,
Yeah.
you know, annually or whatever, whether it's diversity, inclusion, or how you, difficult conversations, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, you know,
It's never
it's how do you set up your classrooms? I mean, you wanna have a civil classroom as well, so I mean, it all kind of, you know, the adults have to be able to do it first, I think, so.
Example.
So, and then, okay, the next one was the ESSA priority standards, or priority outcomes. That's the work that we started, that was a result of our targeted, school report card, their targeted status, whatever you wanna call it. So, one of our goals is to work to, develop and implement, an MTSS system, so to provide support, different tiers of support for our students. And I know one of the questions at the last board meeting was, you know, we looked at our FAST data and we had 50% of our kids were either some risk or high risk, and you know, what are you gonna do about it? So I had invited a couple of teachers. I wanted them to, you know, they know the system the best and they're the ones doing it. So to kind of share, we just took one kid and kind of, they're gonna walk through one student that they have and what they've done or what we've done, and what kind of growth we've seen. I do have another document, I don't know if I can link it, JC, since the.
Tara, do you have it up right now?
I do not.
Okay, I'll pull Nan's up.
Yeah, I shared it with
Okay.
JC.
Before we get started, what's MTSS?
Multi-tiered
Multi-tiered
system
something.
of support, so that's, you've got your tier, you've got your universal instruction, you've got your tier 2, which is for kids that maybe aren't progressing with that, just that universal instruction. You've got your tier 2 instruction, and if they need more support, then they get the tier 3, so.
Thank you.
So I just asked them to, you know, okay, so here, what do? You got a kid that gets flagged or gets identified as, remember, FAST is just a screener, that just alerts us that the student potentially may have difficulty learning to read or acquiring reading skills. So then what do you do? So Tara, if you wanna go ahead and just walk through yours a little bit.
Sure. So in August, we took the FAST test, which all students take. In first grade, we take the early reading test, which consists of nonsense words, word segmenting, sentence reading, and then sight words. And so when we took this test, this particular student was identified at some risk in 3 of the 4 tests that we took. So he was kind of had a red flashing light that we needed to do something. So from there, we gave the Really Great Reading Diagnostic Assessment, which Really Great Reading is our phonics program. So with that, they see just different kind of short vowel words. They have to read some sentences, which give us information if they can read hard words within context. And so we can just kind of drill down to the specific skills that they were missing. So then we, as a grade level, PLC, including Nana and Kim, we met to review the results of all of both the FAST assessment and the Really Great Reading assessment. And we broke up all the kids based on some kind of the lowest skill that they were missing. So this specific student was needing additional support with letter sounds and segmenting words, which although they were in first grade was more of a kindergarten skill, and that could have definitely contributed to being shut down with COVID. But it was just something that we needed to address to make sure that they could progress in the first grade skills. So we put all of the kids into groups for Trojan time, which is our intervention time, based on their needs. And so all of those students, we tried to, for the lower skills, cap the groups at 6 to make sure that they were getting intense instruction on the skills so that they could hopefully make gains and catch up to the other kids in the grade. So teachers were assigned the different groups, and then we were assigned to find research-based interventions, which is different than what we've done in the past. A lot of times as teachers, we've gone to Teachers Pay Teachers, which is just a great resource to find activities, but not research-based to make sure that kids make progress. So FAST has a lot of research-based interventions that teachers can print off and do with the kids, as well as Florida Center for Reading Research. So this student received evidence-based instruction around the target skills identified through the diagnostic assessment during Trojan time. So this student was also receiving all of the core first grade instruction, was receiving guided reading groups, and then also we had the daily explicit instruction for our really great reading phonics program with Fidelity. Something I did as well with my class at the beginning of the year, because the student wasn't the only one, is 5 minutes a day. I try to work on wherever I could throughout the day, complete a Haggerty lesson, which is targeting those phonemic awareness, those letter sounds and segmenting, and what do you hear at the beginning of the word and those kind of activities. So every day the student would receive the small group instruction during guided reading as well. During this time with me or with Mrs. Craven, because this particular student also had qualified for a title. We worked on specific skills that the group needed as a whole, as well as practicing reading using the strategies we learned during our whole group instruction. Daily, I also added in, we always practiced heart words with really great reading, but repetition sometimes is key. So I would do throughout the day another point where we would review all of our heart words as well to make sure that students would have a lot of repetition with that. So as we were doing our Trojan time, as teachers, we were progress monitoring our students weekly to see the effect on instruction. At our grade level PLCs weekly, we would analyze data to see if the students were making success. And as students were meeting the goal, if they met the goal 3 times in a row, then they would be able to move on to the next skill. And then if not, then we would change the intervention to see if that would have an effect on the skill for the student. So this particular student began working on the letter sounds and the word segmenting, was able, after 3 to 4 weeks, was able to exceed the goal. And so we were able to, as a PLC, review that data and move this student on to the next skill, which was nonsense words. So continuing everything that I had mentioned before, the student changed groups and began working on nonsense words, and spent a little bit longer time with that, but the trend line continued to go up in the direction. It'd be the next graph. That was the first one, the next graph there. Yep, that one. So the line, that's the solid line, and then it continues the dotted line, that's our trend line. And the lower dotted line was our goal line. So all of his goals were above, so he was doing very, very well. So after we got together and reviewed our data as well for nonsense words, we knew that when the student took the FAST assessment again here in the winter here soon, that he would be successful. So we were able to move him on to the next skill, which is the high frequency words. And so that's where we're at right now. We've just completed 1 week of that intervention. So other data that we've made, that I've used to help make instructional decisions, I've completed monthly running records. So during guided reading time, I pull a student one at a time and I listen to them read a familiar book to me and make notes to see what their accuracy is. It's not a timed activity. I just want to know, can they accurately read these words? And so this student, over the course of this time, has been able, as we have gotten to harder and harder levels, been able to score over 95% accuracy each time. So the student's proving to me that they can read more challenging text than what we started. So with all the additional support that we have, the school system has provided, In half a year, the student has jumped 3, almost about to jump the 4th reading level, which is gonna make meeting, even though the student was behind where we would typically see first grade students, the end of the normal first grade goal is within reach. So the student has made a lot of progress with this MTSS system that we have in place and using data to make our instructional decisions. That's all that I have.
Thanks, Tara. And this is an ongoing process. It's not, we just don't do it one time. We do it every, it keeps going. So Joy, do you want to share real quick just an specific example of a 3rd grade student?
Yep. Scroll down. Okay, so I've got one of my students here at a 3rd grade level. When this student came in August, we took the fast screeners as well, and at our level we do the CBMR, which shows how many words they're reading in a minute. This particular student read 51 words per minute, and our benchmark for the beginning of 3rd grade is 87. So this signaled to look into that reading fluency a little bit more. And when we see a score that's this much below the benchmark, we can see that it's gonna be something other than just their speed. There's gaps somewhere else before that fluency is gonna catch up. So the FAST website gives recommendations for where they see that instruction being needed. So from the FAST website, it was recommended to give this student additional instruction on phonemic awareness, which was mentioned as a kindergarten first grade skill. And then from there, we gave the really great reading phonemic awareness diagnostic to look closer at those phonemic awareness skills, as well as the phonics diagnostic assessment too. So those look pretty much like what Tara was describing for her level. We've got short vowel sounds, advanced vowel sounds, sentences, and some nonsense words. So after giving those 2 assessments, it did show a gap in that phonemic awareness, which would be the lower skill. So we came together as a grade level team and determined the students that needed that same phonemic awareness instruction, created an intervention group that would come together for that explicit small group instruction daily during our Trojan time. So in that intervention group, I was doing that group and using the Hegarty Phonemic Awareness Curriculum. So this student participated in that group for 4 weeks. I had developed an assessment to monitor that progress weekly on those specific phonemic awareness skills, so I could see how they were moving through those and how the instruction needed adjusted. So then after those 4 weeks, we gave our phonemic awareness diagnostic from our phonics curriculum again. And when that data was reviewed for this particular student, it showed that she was green, on track, and had mastered those phonemic awareness skills. So then after that, we went into the next level of reading skills, which would have been the phonics data. On her specific phonics diagnostic assessment, it showed that she had gaps showing up in her advanced vowel phonemes. So after looking at that, our grade level team came together again, and we just determined other 3rd graders that needed those same advanced vowels. We created an intervention group for that, and then during Trojan time, they were given the explicit small group instruction. For this particular skill, we used a intervention from the FAST website. And again, we have an assessment that we use to monitor that specific progress weekly so that we know what advanced vowels they are mastering, which ones they're gonna need next, and so forth. And then this is also on top of our whole group daily phonics instruction as well. Throughout all of this, the student was also progress monitored weekly on her on the reading fluency. And most recently last week, she read 101 words per minute. So she has made some really awesome growth. So I can see that those phonics skills are catching her reading fluency up a little bit. Here is her graph, so trending up, the solid blue line is that trend line, and then the dotted gray one, you guys can see the star at the end is the end of year target. So right now it's looking like she is projected to meet that end of the year target. So our MTSS system is providing some really good instruction for these students and the missing skills that they have, so that's all I've got for mine.
For both of you, I'm gonna throw just a quick curveball at you for a question. When we talk about interventions, and even a lot of people know interventions from special ed world or IEPs, when you got to that 3-week intervention or that 4-week, a lot of, you learned, is it more of something, or do you think, hey, I could have done this intervention for 5 and 6 and would have worked? Or do you think, you know what, it's not more of the something that's not working? Do you feel like 3 to 4 was pretty spot on before you'd have to make a change?
3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? Yeah, I mean, I think for my student in particular, I think it's that he has the capabilities, but he just needed that little extra boost. And so for that one, it just took 3 weeks to get that boost, and then all of a sudden it's like something clicked, and then he was ready to move on. So
Yeah, and they're very
I like
fluid.
that we have that flexibility to change, and we don't have to commit to, oh, this intervention has to happen for 8 weeks, because then we could lose time working on another skill.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah, the groups are very fluid. I mean, if the student's not ready, they wouldn't.
Yeah, and I've noticed it depends on skill too. With my student, the phonemic awareness, we got that caught up pretty quickly. The advanced vowels are taking a little bit longer just because there's so many of those that need to be mastered, so.
I think from the outsider looking in, that question was asked just simply because when we think of something needing, we need more of the same. When we look at the intervention through MTSS, you can identify in 3 to 4 weeks it's working or it's not. Let's look at a different intervention before we keep grinding the same, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks at this. So I really appreciate it, and thank you both for taking the time. I don't know if there's any board questions here. I'll try to have them speak loud for you if they have anything, so.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First of all, Tara, tell Ryan to stay out of your picture frame. How long is Trojan time? Like how frequently, how many minutes or whatever are you spending with the students?
Yeah, so it's 25 minutes a day. We do not, so I would say it's 25 minutes a day for 4 days. We use one of those days as a data day because we switch kids and we're all mixed up. We need to have our homeroom one day of those weeks so that we can test all of our kids during that time. Otherwise, we don't have the ability to get the data that we need. So one day is a data day and the kids are given an activity within our own classroom during that time, while teachers are available in the room to collect the data from the students that we need.
And you said that you capped the, lack of a better way of putting it, that lower tier group at 6 per group, right?
Yeah, yes.
So then what does that instruction look like? Is it group instruction or is it, one-on-one instruction or a combination of the some?
For those groups that have 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just more small group, because there's only 6, so that teacher will, has the ability to do a little bit more one-on-one within that group than a teacher would if she has a group of 18 working on that skill. So there's gonna be some small, whole group, but it's a group of 6 small group, and then as well as some individual instruction within that and kind of working, 5 minutes here or there with one kid at a time within that small group.
All right, appreciate it. This is good stuff. I mean, this is the stuff that I think brings value to the board on what's happening on a daily basis. So I'd like to see, for all of you, more of this type of stuff, these success stories, and putting it into context for us that aren't in the building every day. We can see all that work that's going into driving these scores in the right direction. So good work, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time and sharing, and I'll let anyone else speak that wants to.
I agree. I love hearing the story. It was good. I'd be interested in seeing, the growth in the FAST assessment too after we get that back. Yeah, I know, under pressure, right, but
No, and
the rest of the story.
Yeah, and that's the part of the schedule that we added today or this year, that 20 minutes, and we pull in as many staff members that are available, so like Mrs. Craven, Mrs. Tarbell takes a group, Elise takes, or Mrs. Mater takes a group, and I do a second grade group. I can't do every grade level group like I would like to, but I do a second grade group so that, and it's not just intervention, so that it also helps extend the kids, so the kids that are already proficient and are meeting the standards, they go with the teacher and they do some like literature discussions, some higher level work, so we can kind of keep those kids going too. So, yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it, so when you ask like, hey, what are you doing? And they're not, I mean, that's what they're doing with all of our kids, so they've all done a really great job. So thanks guys for coming on today, and probably wear jeans tomorrow if you want.
Did you catch that?
No, I didn't.
She just said to wear jeans tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you both, appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so again, that's part of another one of our priority outcomes for our ESSA work, so everything kind of lines right up there. And then our upcoming events, we have FAST testing, the week of the 18th. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up February 15th and 18th, and we will let parents choose either virtual or in person. We were all virtual, last time. We got some good feedback from parents that I think we'll go ahead and let them do either or. And then we have Dr. Seuss Week or Read Across America Week. We're making a little bit of a transition. We are not abandoning it, so it's okay. We will still have Dr. Seuss Week. The NEA actually rebranded that. I can't remember what year it was, so it's called Read Across America. So there's a link. I should have probably linked it in there, but it's promoting reading and celebrating reading all year long. And this year there's different themes, so kids will be exposed to a new book every month, and then do activities around that, and then we'll culminate with our celebration day of Dr. Seuss Day or Read Across America Day. So. And our librarian, and then Andrea Tolfson is helping kind of get that going too, so nice.
Questions on the elementary report? Good stuff, thank you very much. Intermediate, middle school?
Yeah, first thing I had was professional development on the 4th and the 5th, and some of it will be the same as what Jeanette said and what Jake will say. Jake and I, some of our staff combined and put together a 4th through 12th grade boot camp, just on things that teachers had been using so far that others thought that they would benefit from. We allowed teachers to sign up for what they wanted to do and rotate through about 45-minute sessions. So that was held on the 4th. We also spent at the middle school some time. We've invested some time in project-based learning due to COVID. That has probably taken a little bit of a back burner the first semester, and so we reviewed some of the project-based learning material, and then expectation is that teachers will have a project-based learning experience for their each one of their kids in their class once the second semester, so for each class. And then one thing that's really exciting is we were able to pull, I think it was on the afternoon of the 5th, our K-12 special ed teachers and get all on the same page and have the AEA work with us. We very similar to some of the stuff that you saw that the teachers there with trend lines and seeing each individual kid, how are we progressing when we chart progress monitoring, and are we making some the right gains, and if not, what are some things that we need to do different. So when we left that meeting, every special ed teacher had charted their each one of their students, their data from December, and then we set dates for once a month meetings here on throughout the rest of the semester. So extremely beneficial. So instead of sometimes you come to an IEP meeting and you might be the first time that you talk like with a parent, like, hey, here's we're trending in the right direction or we're not, and what are some, things that we need to do differently. Now we're looking at that, once a month, and so, each teacher will be responsible to, fill out they call it data dig form, prior coming to that meeting, so that will be extremely nice. Next thing I had, actually, the next two things aren't really exciting or positive things, just results of COVID. Drake, Angela, and I have met several times regarding fifth grade band, and tried to push it off until second semester. Obviously, things that are not a whole lot better, that you could just have full band. So we just decided it's probably best interest of our kids, just not to have. One of the big concerns was if we had it, we would have to make it small groups, and with it working with the schedule, you could be meeting like once every 2 weeks, and then it's like, all right, is that a negative experience for the kids? And then they're not gonna wanna do it, and then they never get to Drake. And so Drake and I have talked about some potential plans when they start in sixth grade, just to make up for that. He felt very, very comfortable with this decision, and is not no objection at all. The letter that Drake composed, I linked there, that was sent to fifth grade parent or students. I think it was sent home last Friday, and then I added it to my weekly Facebook message. Middle school winter formal dance, another thing we just rescheduled, but we're now looking at allowing student council to turn that kind of into a negative into a positive, and look for a date in the spring, and just have a formal dance then. I think the date we're looking at right now, student council met yesterday, tentative date was April 30th, so hopefully that will get to take place for the kids.
Like, see how prom goes.
Yeah, I think that's why they picked the 30th, they wanted to go after
Prom's
prom,
going,
and see how
so.
that goes. And then I already said Winterfest, we're doing as well the week of the 18th. Right before break, I had Brad Fonz walk with me through the buildings. I always like to do that and just make sure that where we have kids that during drills and stuff is the safest and safest place for our kids and staff, and so we'll make some changes. We had some people and some kids that probably not in necessarily ideal locations at the 4 or 5, so we're gonna adjust those as well for second semester when we do drills. And then the last thing I had, and I just added this, I just met with the AEA today, along with Mary Haley and Al Craven, and I met as UPAR. That is a 30-minute assessment that will look at any kid that has identified a persistently struggling reader. That will take a 30-minute assessment, and it identifies which the way they learn best. So they will read a passage by themselves. They will have like a text reader read it, and then they have like a recorded adult voice that reads it, and then it will score how the kid does based off of each one of those assessments. And so then typically most kids are going to score the best when it is read aloud to them by an adult. And we also have to, and so that would be shared with the teacher. But then the other thing is identify the areas that they don't do as well. And as kids get older, typically, the joy of having an adult read to them kind of lessens. As you start getting into probably upper middle school, they don't enjoy the adult as much. So how do we strengthen those areas for the students, or certain subject areas? If I've got like a kid going into a science class and there's not as much maybe support in there like there normally is with a math and reading, because students, when they have their IEP goals, are usually math and reading focused, so might not be as much support in a science class, but you might have a lot of reading in there. Letting a teacher know here's the grade level that they are at. So if I had a 8th grade student in a science class, that it might have to be down to like a 5th grade level that they could understand if they were asking to read aloud. So same material, but just worded a little bit differently. So the AEA has been given 6,000 licenses that they can assign to the different schools. They asked us if we wanted to participate. It's a 3-year study that they are doing. It is at no cost to us. Our group, after listening to the presentation and after looking at it, we already had some stuff before the meeting, agreed to be a part of it. So now our job is to identify those students that we would assess. So we would look at those that persistently score low or at risk, identified at risk, and our IEP students. And then administer that to them. So I think I linked that as well, so if you wanted to know more.
So what grades will you be leveraging that in?
That would be, right now, what they want to work with us in is at the middle school, 6th through 8th grade. And then celebrations, I really appreciate the people that have led activities during COVID, what a challenge. I also should put on here, I appreciate Mr. Shipley for scheduling games, what a nightmare it's been, and for him to extend seasons and find stuff for the kids to do. You know, I've been in some districts where when middle school stuff gets canceled, it just gets canceled, and you don't make up. And that's not been the case. I think Dave actually has got us another wrestling meet, I think Monday, so even though the kids' seasons were stopped for a while, he's went out and found games for us, for the kids, so. Certainly is a different atmosphere when kids are involved in activities. They're pretty excited that they get to do those things. So I appreciate that Dave has worked to get those things in for the kids. We got a great note. I should have shared this from, I got one from the Ballard Elementary principal. I'll read to you. I got home last night from my son's basketball game at BCLUW, and I got the email at anytime you get an email at night, it's like, oh no, am I gotta deal with something right away in the morning. And this is what he said. This is Mike Mannock, is an elementary principal at Ballard. He said, you don't know me, but I want to shoot you a short message. I'm an old coach and current principal that was at your school tonight. I sat in front of some middle school boys at the West Marshall versus North Polk 7th grade girls basketball game. So when he started that way, I'm like, oh no. He said, one boy had a broken foot and another claimed he was a state champ wrestler at extra heavyweight. As I sat there and heard them cheering the girls and being middle school boys, I was nothing but impressed. I have a broken foot and a couple of them offered to help carry my scooter into the bleachers. You get a chance, please pass this on to their wrestling coach, as they all still say goofy middle school kids. They showed what fine young men should act like. I don't know their names, but they represented West Marshall well. Give them a pat on back. The whole group cheered, were respectful, and should make you proud. So that's how I got to start my day today, sharing that with our building. So I think that's the importance of, you know, being in school, being able to, like, I will tell you, the one person that I know that was identified was a student that we started at the beginning of the year with a lot of challenges, had kind of been, mom had kind of said, I'm done, and moved in with a grandparent, and it was struggled early on, but because of people, this kid was, teachers, the kid was involved in football and wrestling. You're hearing the right things, and those people are constantly saying that kind of stuff. This is a result of that. This is not where it was at the beginning of the year. So we have a lot of good people working with our kids. And then the last thing, I just linked the December students of the month as well. So we look to identify each teacher has got 1 to 2, depending on how many kids they have in their class, that demonstrates either respect, responsibility, or building relationships with kids. And so the 4 or 5, I walk through the classrooms and give those to the kids. 6 through 8, we've been doing virtual, and we're going to try Friday for a in-person assembly to hand those out.
I'm just curious, when you said you shared it with the building, did you like read it?
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Awesome,
That's
that's
how I
awesome, I wasn't sure if you meant you shared it with your staff, or
No, I
read
just,
it out loud.
part of our announcements,
Cool,
yeah.
very cool.
You never know who's watching you.
Yep,
That's right.
yep. We had a similar one, I think it was at a volleyball game. It was actually one of our grandparents of our kids that done the same thing, and just said how impressed, middle school kids, you never know sitting by them what you're gonna be in store for, and just said what awesome kids they were, and yeah, it's very impressive. And like you tell kids, that person is gonna left here and told how many other people. So,
Well, I should have let Nanette know, this week I took my grandson to school and I shared it on my own Facebook page, but the guidance counselor, Mr.
Fitch.
he opened the door, greeted my grandson, told me to have a great day. I mean, what a great way to start your day. So let him know, I thought that was awesome.
Any questions on the middle school report? Thank you, Mr. Tolson. Next up, high school, Mr. Rain.
Yeah, just starting things off there, talking about those same professional development things. One thing I did add in, just so like the board kind of see, you guys talked about being able to see that reflective piece. So all of our K-12 teachers, this is what a data digs report looks like. So that way the AEA supports those consultants put together this information based off of the IEP data that's looking at that. So our teachers are able to actually, when they meet in those PLCs monthly, they can review that data and start having some brainstorming sessions, talking about some strategies that can work to improve and see that movement that you want to see in the positive direction. So just as you look at that there, it's kind of an example of a teacher being able to look at their roster students and identify what their goal areas are, and they're able to analyze that progress, as a group. Each individual teacher does that, but sometimes you're trying interventions. You've tried those interventions, 4 weeks, those interventions really haven't changed anything. You've tried something else, and so these types of things can just create those conversations that can help brainstorm and try some different things to make those movements for the kids. So wanted you to be able to see what that looked like from that work. Next piece there, from our PD time, our SRG teams, our Standards Reference Grading team meetings. So we've, at the high school, again, we've broken into 2 teams. We currently have Team 1, that group is currently implementing Standards Reference Grading at the high school. We have 9 courses here between freshman and sophomore level courses that are implementing and have completed the first semester of that work. One of the things that look at with that is, sometimes we get hung up on students not meeting things the first time. And sometimes, kind of that old school mentality is hanging on to, well, yes, but they didn't do this the first time, or they didn't know it the first time, so we need to continue to reflect that. Saw a post on Twitter that talked about, don't be mad that a student has now done better. That's reflective of great teaching. That's a celebration, right? So when our students at the end can now demonstrate their understanding with those things, that's the reflection of a teacher taking the time and making sure that those students have really gained that progress. Had a lot of conversations with staff about a student that was coming in near the end of the semester that did some reassessments near the end with some standards they were not proficient on, are meeting what they need, and they were meeting that, and the teacher had a really hard time and said, do I hold on to that score before, or and if you just ask them, is like, in your professional judgment, has the student demonstrated their understanding of the standard, the material that you want them to walk out of your class like? And then, yes, absolutely. Okay, let their grade reflect that, as opposed to holding on to, well, the first time they did this, they were not very successful. But again, we went through that, did reteaching and some of those interventions. So those conversations have definitely been beneficial as we continue to work forward. That same Team 1 team is going to be implementing Course 2 and Course 3 for next year. A lot of those Team 1 teachers are asking, can we jump ahead and move forward with this, same for other courses. Want to make sure that they have their formative assessments and their summative assessments lined up and put in place for next year. So be moving forward with that. Team 2, those are our teachers that were on the traditional grading system. They've already identified their standards, their proficiency scales are now complete. They're working to create the formative and summative assessments, and they'll be grading in the backside, as our Team 1 did last year, so they'll be kind of dual reporting on their own, so they're able to review and reflect that and ensure that when they are ready for next year, they have things ready to go for a standards-based or standards reference grading shift on that. But overall, very happy to see teachers based off things, talking about, what is the purpose of what you're asking kids. What are you wanting to have as an outcome?